Today on Locked On Rockies, back-to-back series wins against some of baseball's best, exactly how we predicted.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 30th day of May in the year 2024. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. Let me know what's on your mind. Fire off your Rockies hot takes. Let me know what you want me to talk about on the show by commenting on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And really appreciate your support when you like the videos, when you check out the videos, when you subscribe, when you leave comments. All of that stuff is the easiest way to help the show grow as we continue our track towards 1,000 subscribers. We are less than 150 subscribers to that goal. Would love to get there by the All-Star break or the end of the season. So on the roll there, would love your support on the YouTube channel. Today on the show, well, we're talking happy. We're talking positive. We're talking good, because there's an argument to be made that I'm more impressed with this homestand than I am with the 7-game win streak. It's kind of hard to compare, but let's talk about a little bit of comparisons, plus the trade rumor machine. Ooh, should and would the Rockies trade Ryan McMahon? We're going to talk about that coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we dive into everything today, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast, get shop for your next plumbing, h-vac, electrical job, and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. Folks, also, I don't know if it happened last night. I don't think it did. I teased it, but coming up real soon, something new is coming to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. They're called postcasts. It's going to be after the games. We are going to be able to, you're going to get a breakdown. It's not going to be from me. We got another great host that's going to be doing postcasts for Rockies, Broncos, all the teams. It's going to be on, it's called the Locked On Rockies postcast. And they are going to set you up there all season long. Let's make sure I didn't miss that, because this is new for us. Let's see, postcast, because I think it's still being launched. I thought it was launching last night, but I haven't seen I didn't see it happen. So stay tuned for that, which basically we got a great other host coming in. Nilo is going to do a great job. And so stay tuned for that. And yeah, like I said, it's a show that's a little bit more out of my control. So I don't have a lot of sway in terms of like when it posts and all that stuff. So be sure to just stay tuned for that and check it out when it drops in the feeds. Okay, Rockies. Hey, we talked about this, especially I preview this. We got a crossover coming up with Locked On Dodgers tomorrow to look ahead to the series there, but it's good to be wrong, right? Like, it's good to be wrong and think that this Rockies team didn't necessarily have a chance against any of these teams, and then for them to come out and do damage. I mean, one of the things that's the most encouraging about this series is the Rockies played a lot of hard-fought games. The Rockies had to bounce back in some games, and the Rockies did face some adversity. And if they really didn't face some shakiness in the later innings from their bullpen, there's an argument that they could have been sitting at back-to-back sweeps there. I mean, I know it's ifs and buts at that point, but when you talk about playing 6 games against 2 of the best teams in baseball, and then in reality, when you break it down, that only 3 innings out of all 4 of those games were bad, then you're sitting in a pretty good spot. In reality, you take away the 9th inning explosion from the Phillies there in the finale, and you take away the 8th and the 9th inning in the second game against Cleveland, and you sitting there and you're like, it was all Rockies. I mean, it really truly was all Rockies in that situation. If the Phillies don't go off on that big run and the Rockies are able to slam the door in the 9th, they sweep the Phillies. And that's when we're talking about being so frustrated with the team, at the beginning of the seaon. When we're talking about this team's potential, when we're talking about ceilings, that's more like it. This team clearly has issues, and the bullpen continues to be the biggest one. But the starting pitching has continued to exceed expectations, even guys like Ty Blach. I know that Ty Blach had a couple of ones, but the last couple of times Ty Blach has gone out there, it has gone pretty well for the Rockies, at least in terms of keeping yourselves in the ball games there for the Rockies. I mean, he's gone at least 6 innings in his last 2 starts. He's given up 2 earned in both of those times, but Ty Blach giving you 6 innings against Philly and Cleveland is exactly what you were hoping for. And again, not flashy lines, 6 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts in the finale against Cleveland, 6 in 2/3, 5 hits, 2 earned, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts from Blach. But when you look at those earned runs and when you look at how the games went for Ty Blach, those were both early damage. That after Ty Blach, had gotten roughed up a little bit in the beginning of those games, he settled in, and then the Rockies backed him up. What we saw the Rockies doing in these series was playing complete games of baseball, not perfect baseball. There's obviously issues, like we said. We've harped on the bullpen issues a lot, and that's going to continue to be a problem. I'm sure a lot of you started holding your breath last night there as how things were going with Tyler Kinley. I certainly did. But they came back multiple times, even in that loss against Cleveland. They fought back after going down early in games. They didn't let these juggernaut offenses run away with it, with the exception of 3 innings. And that's awesome. That you couldn't ask for more from this team. This was a team that was considered to be one of the worst teams in baseball, and then they just handled business against 2 of the best teams in baseball, one of the best leagues in the records in the American League in Cleveland, and Philly, who's been one of the better teams, one of the more dominant teams all season long. The Rockies, I believe, I can't remember what the stat is, but I believe the Rockies have a winning or at least 500 record against above 500 teams this year, and their record against sub 500 teams is abysmal. It's the weirdness of the Rockies personified there, but it's also a moment that says, you know what? This Rockies team, especially at home, has more gusto than you think. Still far away to go from being, a juggernaut contender, but you're going to sit there. You can't sit there and be, like we were during the beginning of the season, like we were in the losing streaks and probably what will bounce back up as the Rockies head on the road. You can't just lump them in with these teams that I don't think that they have any business being lumped in with. I really don't. I think that these 2 series proved that the Rockies are not the worst team in baseball. I think I still think that if you take the Rockies and you put them in series again, and it's hard to say that when they have the above or the below 500 record this season, but that's still kind of the strangeness of baseball and the weirdness of baseball. My confidence has only grown in the team, not in the sake of, whoa, here it is. They're catching fire. They're going to be this playoff team now. They everything's cooking. I'm not going there yet. I'm just going there and saying, all right, this team does have more of a pulse than we thought. This team is making adjustments. This team is looking like they're actually competing. What's nice about watching the Rockies in the month of May compared to the month of April is they look prepared. They look competent. They look ready to go. They look able to handle the competition that they are playing up against, or at least compete with that competition, as opposed to feeling like they're completely outmatched. That feeling might change this weekend as the Rockies have a really terrible matchup and on the road in a really tough place to play. However, I don't know. You'll get a good deep dive in with Locked On Dodgers. There are things that the Dodgers have issues with, but this sets the stage for the Dodgers series. This sets the stage. This sets the mindset. You can't give good teams extra chances, because what happens? You get punished. That's what happened late in the Cleveland game. That's what happened late in the Philly game. You can't allow free passes and opportunities to these elite level teams and these elite level offenses. That's how you get in trouble. The Rockies were able to negate that in this series and in the Philly series as well, leading to, personally, I think I'm a little bit more impressed with this 7-game or with these back-to-back wins than I am with the 7-game win streak. It's a weird way to compare it, But let's dive into it. Let's talk about it a little bit more, and let's talk about some of the teams that the Rockies played during that stretch. We'll also talk about the Rockies getting comfortable at Coors Field as they should. Let's talk about all that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes SupplyHouse. Hey, maybe you're on the site right now, maybe the job site, I should say, and you're listening to the show as you are going through the workday, and you realize, man, I need some plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies. Well, guess what? You can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? You can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person. Yes, a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. We are bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked on Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. That's what we do around here each and every day. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Shout outs to our everydayers out there. Remember, Rockies postcasts coming your way soon. I thought they were coming yesterday, but and that was my tease, but hopefully coming soon. Stay tuned for the Rockies postcasts. We're going to have it's going to be really exciting, really fun stuff as the network continues to grow. And a reminder, you can get all the action on the Locked on Rockies YouTube channel. You can also get all your play-by-play action of the Colorado Rockies on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. So check it out all there. So are you more impressed with the Rockies' winning streak of 7 games, or are you more impressed with winning 2 series against 2 of the best teams in the business? Well, let's see what some folks on Twitter had to say. All right. Sports and Crypto Guys says the latter when I asked 2 tough series at home, both awesome. Go Rocks. Colorado Jolene says probably the 7-game winning streak, especially since they hadn't won 3 games straight all season at that point. And then Monty says 2 series wins against tough competition all day. Love the Rocks taking on the Dragon Slayer persona. Hey, so far this season, the Rockies series wins have come against the World Series champs, Texas Rangers, the Phillies, and the Guardians. Pretty wild when you think about that, and San Diego as well. So the Rockies handling the playoff teams, the non-playoff teams, not so much. But so the Rockies versus Texas, the thing that's a little bit more impressive about the 7-game win streak is the fact that the Rockies do sweep San Diego on the road. So road sweeps are something the Rockies don't ever do. And as Colorado Jolene mentioned, this team hadn't been stringing back-to-back 3 wins together in a while. They hadn't won a series since last year. There was a lot of issues there. That 7-game win streak, I think, really did set the tone for the Rockies and put them in a position where the confidence was boosting, because the Rockies desperately, not only win-loss record, but the Rockies desperately needed that win streak because they couldn't string together back-to-back wins until that point. The Rockies hadn't won back-to-back ball games until that win streak started. And again, it included a win against San Francisco, which you'll always take, sweeping Texas and sweeping San Diego. So overall, yes, those are the more impactful, that's 7 straight wins. Those are all great dubs. But I think it's really important that the Rockies held on and kept home field safe in this series. I think that's the trend setter where you can set yourself up and say, hey, you know what? The road's going to be one thing, but we're at least getting back to and seeing this Rockies team be that threat at home, be the team that you got to be careful with, that you can't just waltz into Coors Field and think that you're going to be able to handle business and just walk all over this team. This is a team that has shown that they are able to, can hit the long ball, can do some damage, can hang in there, especially in the friendly confines of 20th and Blake. That's something I really enjoy seeing. I think that is a really, really key development for the Rockies here as we're you kind of break down the season in chunks, of course, because we're talking, well, the start was really bad, but May was better, and the Rockies have been better. And why have the Rockies been better? Well, they've been better at home of late. The Rockies are now 13-14 at home. And the weird thing, I think, with home loss record for the Rockies is they technically have 2 home losses in Mexico. So if you take out the 2 losses in Mexico, add them onto the away total, just if you want to keep the losses there, the Rockies are above 500 at home. They're 13-12 at home. If you take out the 2 losses in Mexico that aren't, which aren't, Coors games. And it's in the start comparison to being 7-21 away from home. So it's still opening up a there's still the can of worms of the home versus away splits. But if you are the Rockies, the one thing that you for sure can't afford is being bad at home. And the last couple of years, they haven't been as good at home as they need to be. This is how it's supposed to be. This is where the Rockies need to be to be at playing their best ball, because you can tell how frustrated teams get. You can tell how out of hand things can get for people at Coors. And I'm not someone that's just leaning into, and Coors is the ultimate cheat code and altitude and that stuff. It's just abundantly clear that the Rockies are incredibly comfortable at home. They're incredibly comfortable in the field where they can play elite level defense. They're comfortable at the dish. They're comfortable across the board. And it even looks like most of the pitchers are comfortable at home as well. I know Dakota Hudson hasn't had necessarily the best time at 20th and Blake this season as a starter, but still, I am really encouraged by that the win streak was great and it was a sweep on the road. So apples to oranges, right? Why are we really choosing between 2 great things for the Rockies? I'm just saying when I'm looking at things that really encourage me, it's that the team is playing better ball at home, and the team is getting better results at home. And I think that's a first example of steps in the right direction for the Rockies. And I think it's a great way for the Rockies to respond after how that Athletic series went and how frustrating that series against the Giants went as well, where they got swept by the Giants there in those 3 games. So it'll be an interesting thing to see as the season goes on, but we're starting to see this Rockies team become more of that threat at Coors Field, something that was dipping for a little bit for the Rockies here, and hopefully the good times continue. Weird part of the schedule coming up here is the Rockies go to LA just to play the Dodgers this weekend, only to come back to Coors for a quick set against the Reds, and then they're back on the road against St. Louis and Minnesota. So an interesting, and with the Rockies here, depending on how this Dodgers series goes, I mean, Cincinnati's a good team. St. Louis has some there, and I know Minnesota's a good team, but you're looking at some possibilities here if you're able to handle business on the road. The problem for the Rockies here is when you're talking about keeping the good times rolling, 3 of the next 4 series are on the road. So, I mean, that's another thing, though, that if the Rockies can win a couple of these series, if the Rockies can split some of these series, I think most of them are looking like 3 gamers, though. 3-gamer. There's the St. Louis is a 4 in Minnesota. So St. Louis is the only one with a 4. So you can't necessarily do a lot of splitting when there's only 3 games to be played in the series. But I don't know. I feel more confident about the Rockies. Hopefully, if they put together the games, if they play the 9 innings of baseball like they've played in some of these games at home, I think they got a chance. I think they have a shot to steal some of these wins. You're not going to sweep. You're not going to do that. But I don't know. Am I supposed to sit here and be blown away by the Cincinnati Reds at this stage in the season? No, I'm not. I mean, especially when you look at the talent that the Rockies have played leading up into these upcoming series here. The Reds are 24-32. That's only 4 more wins than the Rockies have this season, and have fallen as the Cardinals have gotten themselves back up to 500. So my thing is, I don't worry that there are good teams there. There is talent there, and all that jazz. I understand that, but I don't get overly intimidated by the Central divisions in both the AL and the NL. I really do believe that those are the weakest divisions in baseball. I think they've been the weakest divisions in baseball for a long, long time. So we'll see how the Rockies can handle that. But really good to see them handle cores. Really good to see the offense come alive. I mean, everybody was contributing in certain instances there. I mean, even with the struggles, KB at least hits a big home run. I know it was in the game that was lost, but Brendan Rodgers' big home run yesterday. Montero's hit some home runs. I mean, we're seeing stealing bases. I mean, this is just a team that really looks like they are playing a much different version of ball here as we go through the second full month of the season with June right here, man. Wow, baseball season's already flying. All right, this made the rounds yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about it. Ryan McMahon on the trade block, or at least rumors saying that there are teams interested. I don't necessarily think he's on any sort of trade block. Let's talk about that coming up here next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel's got you covered for all your Rockies sports book action all season long. If you want to take the over-unders on the money lines, the spreads, the run lines, all that stuff, check it out at FanDuel.com, as well as all the player props and everything available to you. I love props, and I love me a little parlay. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150. Yes, that's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Shout outs to our everydayers out there. Shout outs to all of y'all tuning in, and shout outs to SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app, where you can hear all your Colorado Rockies action all season long. Don't forget to coming to the Locked On Rockies feed real soon. I believe it's the Rockies feed, but look out for the Locked On Rockies postcast coming your way after the games finish up. That should be launching real soon. Okay, here is a tweet from John Morrissey here. The Blue Jays are among the clubs with interest in Rockies infielder Ryan McMahon, but a source with knowledge of the Rockies plan says it's highly unlikely he will be available at this year's trade deadline. McMahon, a probable all-star selection for the last place Rockies, is signed through 2027. So I start the question with you, the Rockies fan. Do you trade Ryan McMahon? And in reality, it's not necessarily the worst call. It just really goes to show you what is the plan. What it is 2027, right? That's 2 more seasons after this, or 3. I'm sorry, 2025, 2026, and 2027. So there's 3 more seasons of Ryan McMahon at that. And I believe Ryan McMahon is 29, maybe 30 years old. Let's see here. Ryan McMahon is 29, and he turns 30 in December. So he will stay 29 throughout the whole season. He will be 30 for the second, 31, and 32. So the Rockies, his contract will end at 32 years old. And the question with Ryan McMahon is this version of Ryan McMahon the sustainable one? And has Ryan McMahon done enough throughout his Rockies career and in this season up until the trade deadline for you to confidently say, as the Rockies, to say, we're going to go through with the rest of the deal? Now, it's really not a bad deal. I mean, $12 million for the rest of the. I mean, he's making $12 million, I think, for the rest of the contract. So when you're talking talking money, or talking money committed to Rymac, it's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. But is his value ever going to be higher? I mean, that's I think the hardest part about being a GM. I mean, it really, truly, and it doesn't matter. You're talking Bill Schmidt, you're talking any of these guys. It's really hard to make that call. And it's worked out for some. It hasn't worked out in other cases. I mean, the Rockies, of course, know with that. But that's actually a good point here to bring that up. Nolan Arenado is great still. Nolan Arenado is declining. I don't think anyone is. I mean, maybe I haven't been following Nolan nearly as much as I have in the past, as because I'm pretty solid at the place where I'm kind of I'm over it at least as much as I can be. But Nolan Arenado is posting a 0 WAR this season. He's batting .257 with 4 home runs, 25 RBI, no stolen bases, an OBP of 311, a slugging of 366, an OPS of 677, and an OPS plus of 95. Nolan Arenado is still great. But just to put that into the context there, he's 33 right now. And Nolan was, the first season in St. Louis, he was insane. He's been an all-star for the past 3 years. He's still been great. Got the Silver Slugger in 2022. Like there are still like threads here. But at that, is that where exactly is Ryan McMahon done enough for you to feel as confident as you feel in Nolan Arenado? You can sit there with Nolan Arenado's struggles and you can say, well, I'm more confident in him bouncing back because I've seen it. Ryan McMahon, and I've seen Nolan be one of the best players in baseball for his entire career. We haven't quite seen that from Ryan McMahon, but we've seen the flashes. And pardon me, with the contract, I don't necessarily think you're putting yourself in a position where you make a bad call if you commit to him. You have other options. You certainly can get some pitchers. There are plenty of teams that will want Ryan McMahon. There are plenty of teams that will want, especially this look, Ryan McMahon, who's batting .286 with 10 home runs, a .369 OBP, a slugging of .481, an OPS of .849, an OPS plus of .134, and you got double-digit homers already. His WAR this season is 1.9. He's not on the same trajectory and path as Nolan Arenado, but he's still a really solid player. So I think the Rockies are going to have to ask themselves and really, truly think about this as they head to the trade deadline. Is Ryan McMahon a factor in the next competitive Rockies team? Is Ryan McMahon going to be the third baseman? Is this team going to be good enough to be competitive within his contract window and within within getting the best years of Ryan McMahon in that contract? Because say the Rockies are middling to not great for that time, and say Ryan McMahon continues to be a good baseball player, there's a good chance he just walks at the end of the contract. You might get your Trevor Story supplemental picks and whatnot and all that thing, but that is a factor. I mean, it is 3 more seasons that you're committing to Ryan McMahon as being your star third baseman. And if we're getting this version, that pill's easy to swallow. I think the contract and everything isn't as much as an albatross as some of these, as the Bryant contract, as Arenado's contract might have added up. I mean, remember how many people, there are 2 veterans making the lion's share of what the Rockies are paying folks there as well. So there's team friendliness here. But I don't think the Rockies can completely shy away from at least listening to deals. I mean, they need to actually be proactive in these deals and maybe walk away from them. But I at least hope the Rockies are at least going into this trade deadline being a little bit more open-minded. Bill Schmidt traded a lot of people last year. I don't necessarily know if he's going to pull the trigger on a big deal like trading Ryan McMahon, but there are plenty of teams that can bolster this, that can bring you more pitchers into your organization if you trade Ryan McMahon. I don't know if we have time to dive into it, but in reality, like if I'm going to choose who to trade, I think Brendan Rodgers might be the more interesting one, but he doesn't have as much on. I think he's still got arbitration and all that stuff. There's still weird contract stuff. People will take that Ryan McMahon contract on. I think there's some teams the Rockies probably wouldn't even need to retain. the contract. They'd probably be able to trade it mostly up and free themselves. And they have some people that can play third base. It'll be certainly a decline. But the Rockies have to ask themselves, what does being in last place and not trading anyone mean? Are you really getting better? Are you truly confident in the core of this team? Because Ryan McMahon, clearly a piece of this core. And is Ryan McMahon going to be a part of this team the next time they are competitive enough to get the most out of his talents? We'll see. Right now, I'm a coin toss, man. Ryan McMahon is great. I love Ryan McMahon, but you can't deny at least keeping your mind open to the trade, because there is a good chance this is the best time to trade Ryan McMahon. But on the flip side, a team-friendly deal that isn't going to go too much longer isn't the end of the world, I think. We'll see what the Rockies do. Let me know what you think when it comes to Ryan McMahon, because, folks, that's going to do for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by liking the video, subscribing. Let me know what's on your mind. And, folks, make sure that you're getting Locked On MLB as your second listen of the day, and Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all free and streaming, available to you all on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.